Hi friends, it's Becky, and it has been a little while since I have done a jewelry and watercolor video, and so I decided that with the gorgeous color palette that Brittany Chavers gave us for the January Sam's Bead Box, that it is time for me to do another watercolor and jewelry making video with y'all. Now, if you haven't seen this type of video from me before, what I like to do is, feeling inspired by the color palette of some beads that I've got, I like to do a little watercolor painting that is inspired by those. And so I'm going to be doing a little painting, and then I'm going to be making some jewelry, because there's always a point during a watercolor painting where you need to wait for the paint to dry. So instead of sitting there and playing with my painting and letting it get all messed up because I get impatient, I'm going to set it aside, let it dry, and make some wearable art using the beads that we got in the Sam's Bead Box. I do want to remind all of y'all that if you want the February Sam's Bead Box, you have until the 9th of February to subscribe, which you probably might be watching on the 9th of February if you are about watching about that time. So I've pulled out some beads from this. I'm going to go ahead and move this out of the way and get my painting stuff out, because what we're going to do is I will start my painting, and then when it gets to the point where I need to let it dry, I'll set it aside, pull out these beads, and start creating with it. And we'll probably go ahead and do the necklace first. Then after we're done with the necklace, we'll go do the second part of the painting. And then while that's drying, we'll do some earrings, and then we'll come back to and finish up the painting and do any detail work. The painting that I'm envisioning is going to be the night sky, and there isn't going to be a lot of detail work done, so I'm only going to be using these 2 mop brushes since I don't have to do any fine detail work. And to sketch out my idea, I have these Cretacolor Aqua Monolith. It's a woodless watercolor pencil, so that the lines that I draw will disappear into the painting as I'm painting it. That way I will know where to put my little blobs of paint that are going to be some really gorgeous sunlit clouds, and then it will disappear into the turquoise sky in the background for that. So I've got this light cyan color watercolor pencil that I'm going to be using for my sketching, and we'll do that. As far as the beads that we're going to be using, I went ahead and grabbed these really gorgeous fire polish beads from the Sam's Bead Box. We've got our Malaysia Jade, the dyed pink English cut Gemstones. We've got our two-tone crackle glass with this gorgeous vibrant orange color with a little bit of a gold amber color mixed in. And then we've got another two-tone bead that I'm using. I love these folklore colors, flowers, and we've got a pink and purple tinge to them. So that's going to bring in our purple for our night sky. And then we're also going to be using the turquoise rondelle beads that came in the box. And then for my earrings, we've got these 2 flowers, a couple of the yellows, and the box came with 1 each of an orange and a turquoise table cut butterfly. But I love these butterflies, and so I had extras, so I'm going to be using 2 of them for my earrings. I'm also going to be sprinkling in some of the seed beads that were not part of the box but were sold alongside as an extra, and that is going to be probably the Ado seed beads. We're going to be adding that to our stringing when we do that, and this is going to be a strung design, so it's going to be nice and easy, and I have ideas on how to take what I'm painting and reflect that in the beading design. So let me get my beads out of the way, I'll get my paints out, and we'll go over the start of that painting. And if you have any, if you're feeling curious about some of the other beading and watercolor videos that I've done, if this is the first time you've run into this and you want to see more, I will be adding this to a playlist. So you can click on that playlist and watch some of the other ones that I've done in the past, including last January's Sam's Bead Box, which was also curated by Brittany Chavers, in which I painted the Papago Park hole in the rock. It was so much fun doing that painting. For some reason, Brittany always inspires me with her colors that she picks for these. So I'm happy that she can be so inspiring because it gives me a reason to pull out my brushes, and I've been itching to do a painting for a while. So sit back, grab something to drink. This is going to be a long video, and I hope you enjoy the ride. All right, so the paints that I'm going to be using are some of my Paul Rubens. These are the Gen 4 tubes that I had laid out in both of these palettes. It makes for a great studio palette. I can move both of these around. I do have a video where I did the sort of unboxing and then swatching of these, and I can link that in the description as well so you can see all of the paints that I've done with this. It was actually filmed in a different location. The lighting wasn't as good, but we've still got some fun with this. So the first one is going to be this transparent orange. It is a PY150 yellow. Sorry, it's yellow, not orange. And it is a nice, bright, sunshiny yellow with a little bit of a golden glow. It's very similar in tone to that yellow that I pulled out with those fire polish beads. The next is transparent orange. That's this one right here. And it is just a very beautiful clear orange, which is what I'm going for on the clouds. I don't want cloudy clouds. So we're going to have as transparent as possible our different colors. Then we've got some quinacridone maroon that I'm going to be doing there. It's going to be that bright pink fuchsia color, and dioxazone violet. It is just a really pure blue violet, and we're going to be mixing that in, because if you take like yellow and violet and you mix them together, I'm just going to show you what you get. And so we want to make sure that we have all of these steps in between them. You get mud, right? So we're going to be going, one end of the cloud will be the yellow, we'll have the orange, the fuchsia, and the purple blending all together, and that's going to give us our gradient to make sure we have all those steps in between so we don't end up with mud. And then for the sky behind, we're going to have cobalt turquoise. And this is not a transparent color. The cobalt turquoise is a more semi-opaque watercolor on that, but it's going to be a gorgeous deep sky blue. And then we're going to fade along the background. It's going to fade from that cobalt turquoise down into indigo. So that's going to be our wild sky that we're going to be painting. And that is inspired by the Wild Sky Sam's Bead Box. So that's the paints that we're going to be using. Let me grab my watercolor block. And this is, hold on, I taped down my thing. I'm going to be painting on a Layton watercolor block. This is cold pressed 100% cotton, and it is a 10 by 7 inch block. And block means that it is glued down on all four sides. I'm not doing a heavy wash with this, so it's going to be something that I don't really need it taped down on all sides, but I have it. I do have glued down on all sides. I do have the edges taped for, simplicity's sake. And I'm going to just zoom out a little bit so that you can see more of my messy desk, but you can also see my painting as it takes shape. Let's go ahead and arrange these guys up here so that we can get that started. And actually, let's stack these guys out of the way a little bit and do some sketching on here. I'm going to zoom back in so for the sketching part. So I'm going to go, actually, let's see the whole page. There we go. So we've got the whole thing right there in front of us. Let's get our water over here. got clean and rinse. And as I said, I'm going to be using basically 2 mop brushes for this and my my watercolor pencil. So about an 1/8 of the way down the page, I'm just going to sketch very lightly a horizon line. And it doesn't have to be a straight line. It doesn't have to be exactly right on there, because in addition to the horizon, I'm just going to add some mountains and hills, because we're going to use the indigo at the end of this just to paint in a few mountains along the horizon like that. And you can't see it, but it's there. And then I'm going to choose a spot about 1/3 of the way here, and I'm going to start going out from here with some lines, because I don't know if you've seen like the stratus clouds. I think it's stratocumulus clouds actually, where they're like light and airy clouds that kind of go in like sort of an orderly line. I love that for clouds. So now I've got these guys coming around, and remember, these lines will disappear when I paint because this is watercolor pencil. And then in here, I'm just gonna sketch in some blobs, and maybe that's a long blob with a little one next to it. But we're gonna just get these little blobs sketched down here, some bigger blobs. And they don't need to be completely orderly right next to each other, but I'm just sketching in these little blobs, and we're going to be filling in those blobs with some paint as we go. And we're going to be doing wet on wet for this part. We'll do wet on dry for the sky. I'm just filling in some of those there. And the idea is going to be that the viewer, us, the people who are looking at this, have the sunset behind us. So we're going to still see a turquoise sky, but the sunset will be painted on the clouds or reflected from the clouds onto there. And so we're going to see all of this coming back from there, and it's going to be mostly a vibes kind of a painting as we go. So let's get a few of these blobs wet and then go through and start touching in some of the colors that we're using. How do I want this? Let's start up here. Arranging my paints and things. Usually this is set up for jewelry making, so I am making room on my desk for the fun part. All right, so I've got my little clean water dish here, and I'm just gonna sketch in, just drop some water in these little blobs, get the page wet there where they are. This is just clean water. And I'm not going to go all the way down the page with this because I need to get to each of these blobs before they dry in order to be able to do the wet on wet with them. So I'm just making sure. So we're going to stop there and grab our other brush and start with our transparent yellow. And we want the side that's at the top to have our transparent yellow. And I'm just dropping this in along the top of each of these blobs. All right, so the next part in our gradient is going to be, and I just dipped that in my clean water. That's fine. Painting is fun, so I'm going to grab the transparent orange and drop that in right next to our transparent yellow. Just going to go across like that. And a lot of what's going to happen is going to happen as the paint flows and moves and spreads. All right, next, I'm going to grab our fuchsia, because that's what this quinacridone maroon is. It is a beautiful, gorgeous fuchsia color. I'm going to drop that in here. And some of this is starting to dry, so I'm going to add a little more. A little more water to some of this, so it's not going everywhere. But I'm going to be doing this for each of these little blobs that I have for our little vibes painting. And then further away from us, that's where our dioxazone violet is going to be coming in. And this is a very intense color, so I am going to dilute it a little bit more before dropping it in, because it is so intense. But we're just going to have a bunch of repeated gradients that we are looking at with our little blobs. And you know, so far it looks a little weird, but that's okay, because it'll keep looking weird. It's going to get more weird before it gets better. This is going to be our little sky. All right, let's do more little circles of water. No, that's too much water. Let's put a little circle there. Let's get these guys all the way down here. And then I can do these other ones over near the edge later. All right, we're going to start from the beginning. There we go. I didn't do that one. And I'm leaned over so that I can get an idea of where the water is a little bit better by looking at the way that the light shines off of it. All right, so we've got those guys down there. Let's grab some orange. And I'm not doing like a straight line across. When I do this, I'm dropping it in like kind of a wavy way so that it can have some time to play. So far, so vibrant. Now we've got our magenta. But yeah, have you ever seen that where you've got basically a blue sky behind the clouds because the sunset is painting them? Instead of the sunset painting the sky, they're painting the clouds. I love that. And here's the fun thing about sunsets and about clouds in the sky is that any kind of sky, any kind of cloud that you can imagine has probably shown up. somewhere on this planet, and probably will show up somewhere on this planet at some point in the future as well. So it's always worth it to play and to let your imagination and your whimsy carry you away with some of these. Yeah. Some of my blobs there, getting our purple on. Yeah, this is the stuff once I've got these blobs done. This is where we're going to take a break after this to go ahead and make some jewelry. And you can see they're drying up here already, so they're not as bright as they are when they are wet. So it's going to be more cloudy looking, more like kind of dreamier as far as the colors go. All right, let's get some water in a few more of these blobs here so that we are creating and then we'll get these last ones over here at the edge after we get these guys in there. So we'll start with our transparent yellow again. Where's my water at? There it is. All right. And transparent orange. So off we go with those. And now my fuchsia. One of the fun things about this fuchsia and the orange is that when they mix, they kind of turn red. It's like fire in the sky. And now we've got our purples. Perp, perp, perp. Time to plurple this way in here. It's a little too weedy almost. And I think it's okay if there's a little bit of white spaces in there, honestly, because, you know, clouds usually look white when they aren't being a sunset canvas. All right, these guys are starting to dry a little bit more. Vibrancy is going down. Be more cloud-like at the end of this. All right, let's get these last blobs wetted. and colored. And starting with our yellow. Okay. Orange. And fuchsia. I just love this. These colors speak to my heart. And now we're going back to our purple. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, while I have this out here, I'm going to fill in the mountains and this bottom part with my indigo, because the indigo, just plain indigo, because that's going to be my mountain silhouette. And again, we're not doing heavy details on this. This is just going to be background, because all we really care about is what's going on in the sky. This is just going to ground us, give us a point where we can say, oh, okay, yes, this is us looking up towards the sky, a little bit of horizon in the background. And it's purposefully vague because that's just how it is when you've got mountains far, far away in the distance. So at this point, I'm going to let all of this dry. And while I'm letting it dry, we're going to make some jewelry. And so I'm going to clear out my jewelry making stuff, clean off my desk, and bring back, or clean off my watercolor stuff, bring out my jewelry making stuff, and let's make a necklace together. All right, so I've got the beading stuff out and I'm ready to go. I'm going to make a little focal using this Sun coin bead, one of these turquoise rondelles, and this two-toned melon bead. We're going to do that using some 22 gauge non-tarnished copper wire. I'm going to do a little bit of wrapping the wire around these in order to make a little loop at the top so that we can hang this from the center of the necklace as we go. Once we start beading though, I am going to be beading on some of this turquoise color wire. And then the tools that I'm using are going to be some chain nose pliers, flush cutters, round nose pliers, and my favorite way of crimping is using the magical crimper. To do that, I've got some 2x2 crimp tubes. That is what works in the magical crimper, so I'm going to set that aside until then. And then to close the necklace, I have a simple toggle clasp and some jump rings. These are 5mm jump rings. We'll also go ahead and move them out of the way. All right, let's make our focal real quick, and then we will set out our beading pattern. And I believe for this focal, I'm going to go ahead and give myself 1, 2, and a little bit more. It's about 6 inches of wire. And I'm going to find the middle of that wire right there and put the focal bead right there on the middle of that wire. I'm going to bend this up right there at the bottom because I'm going to go along here and bring the wire up along the front. See, we're coming out of the hole here in the front. I'm just going to wrap this around here one time. Then I'm going to stack my next bead on. And that's going to be the turquoise bead. And then I'm going to hold on to the turquoise bead, wrap this wire around that one time. Like a full rotation, at least one full rotation. So we've got some wire wraps between the beads. And then we're going to put on our melon bead. I'm going to hold on to that while I wrap around that. A full rotation. Now, I've got my thing almost done. I need to make myself a little loop up here at the top. And it doesn't need to be a big loop because we are going to be stringing it on some beading wire. It just needs to be big enough for the wire to go through it. And so I'm going to grab my round nose pliers and I'm just going to bend the wire back, bring it up towards the front towards me, rotate my bottom jaw around to the top, and then just keep going around like this until we get all the way down to the bottom, like that. Cut off our excess wire. And the back. See, we're going to be beading by vibes too. First we're painting by vibes, and now we're beading by vibes. All right, so for this, I'm going to have some repetitions of these beads going through. We're going to have our sky bracketing each of our little clusters of clouds. So we've got our purple near the bottom, and then our magenta right after, then our orange, followed by our little dot of golden yellow. And I'm going to repeat that a few times up the length of each side of these. Now I do have a limited amount of these folklore flowers. We can do 4 on each side. So that's part of where the 8-0 seed beads are going to come in. box is going to also extend the amount of that color on either side as well, and the length a little bit more so that we get a better, like, boom, this is the bead, boom, this is the bead, boom, this is the bead as we go. I thought about using like the larger yellow beads, but I kind of like having that small bead, just that touch of yellow in there with it. So this is going to be one side, and then we'll do the other side just the same. So yeah, the flowers are going to be the limiting amount, and I think that's going to be plenty long enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start stringing. Pour out my seed beads. I'm going to start stringing along one side, make sure it's long enough, and then we will cut off the right amount of wire to start stringing the second side. And so we've got, with the seed beads, a repeat of all of these colors. We've got this bright lemony yellow lined crystal beads, we've got the matte orange beads, we've got some fuchsia lined crystal seed beads, and then we've got some sort of matte but AB turquoise beads. So it's going to be a fun mix, the seed bead mix. I really love it. So I'm going to bracket each of these beads with their like seed bead. So we start with the turquoise, and then we do purple, purple, purple. And I'm calling these purple even though they're two-toned. They're what's bringing in the purple for this color, like that. And then fuchsia, fuchsia, fuchsia. And then orange, 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 orange. You. Glad I didn't say banana again. And then yellow, yellow, yellow. And so that space that we get with the seed beads also kind of lets that little fire polish bead really stand out and shine right there. So this is my little cloud cluster surrounded by my blue sky. And I'm going to continue this until it's the length that I want, or until I run out of these beads, one or the other. But this is a fun part, and this is totally going to let those little wet spots on my paint dry, so we're coming in fresh when we go and add our sky in. So we're going to be coming back to add turquoise in the painting, just around each of our clouds. Hold on. Not fuchsia, orange. There we go. Orange, orange, orange. This is quite a glorious box. Absolutely in love with it. Absolutely in love with it. Again, it's not the first box that Brittany curated that I just been 100% in love with and inspired by. Not the first one at all. Purple. There we go. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? It's, you know, I'm getting some real, like, Lisa Frank vibes from this, which I'm not mad at because I love that. But what do you guys think? I was kind of getting some Lisa Frank vibes from my sky as well. So, I mean, it fits. It fits. It absolutely fits. I love it. I absolutely love it. Just look at that. Look how beautiful that is. Oh yes, this is going to be the perfect necklace length. It's going to end up being a little bit longer than my preferred necklace length, but not so long that I cannot wear it. That means it might be great to layer with a shorter necklace as well, which wouldn't be a terrible thing either. I think with my first necklace from this box, I leaned really heavily into the pinks and purples. So being able to just play with all these other colors is making my heart happy. Absolutely making my heart happy to play with these colors. I love to play with color. It is one of my favorite things ever. Playing with color, having fun with all of these colors. You cannot go wrong with color. And I wouldn't want to. All right, last little bit. Boom, boom, boom. All right, now I'm not going to crimp this end yet because I need to still do the other side of this necklace, but so far I am loving it. It is perfect to have my little gradients just bopping along up that strand. I do need to make sure I have enough wire for the other half. So let's go ahead and snip that there. And we will put on our focal we already made. And go ahead and start stringing up the other side in the exact same pattern. All right, friends, I am going to let you jump ahead to this side being strung up exactly the same way this is. And when you time travel to the future, I will meet you over there and I will show you how to crimp the ends and attach our clasps. So I will see you in a minute. All right, so I have my second end of my necklace all strung up and it matches the first side. So now I can crimp. I'm going to grab one of my 2x2 crimp tubes, put it on the end of my wire, and bend the wire back through the crimp tube. And this wire is very durable, so I never use a wire guardian with it. I find I just don't have to. It's very flexible and it's got a really durable coating. So now I can make a little loop here on the end that I can attach my clasp to with a jump ring. And then I'm going to center that crimp right there in that concavity in my crimper. This is the magical crimper. It's my favorite way of crimping because it turns that crimp tube into a little ball. So first you do a little squeeze and it squeezes just the corners of the crimp tube. You turn it at 90 degrees, give it another squeeze, and then you keep going around and hitting it from other angles and just squeeze each time you move it. You want to open it, then move it, then close it. And each time you do that, it's going to round out those sharp corners, give you a nice smooth ball of crimp. It's a very secure crimping style. I have never had any of these ever come undone on me. I've had other crimp styles come undone on me, like flat crimping. Things will fall apart on you. That sort of thing. I just, not all the time, but I have definitely had flat crimps come apart on me. All right. And now I've got my little loop on that end. I'm going to do the same thing on the other end. And so I just want to make sure that I'm not going to be crushing my seed bead when I make my little loop over here, but I also don't want my necklace to be too stiff. So I'm just going to curl it, and that's going to take up a little bit of slack on my wire so that it will drape better when I do that. And there is a little bit of space between that last bead and the crimp, so I don't have to worry about accidentally crushing that bead. And I'm just going to crimp it the exact same way I crimped the other one. All right, so now I've got loops on both ends on my necklace. Let's see, that's the front. Okay, which means this will be the right hand side. I always do the fiddly part of a clasp on what would be the right hand side for while I'm wearing it, the wearer's right hand side. So I'm going to put the toggle part of this clasp on there. And for the toggle part, not the loop, I always do 2 jump rings. So it just gives it more flexibility, and it moves the toggle part further away from the larger beads, which can sometimes be an issue when you're trying to get it through the loop. So I'm just going to open up my jump ring, attach it to this toggle, close my jump ring. I'm using my chain nose pliers to do that, and I'm using my crimper as a second set of pliers to hold onto that jump ring for me, because it's got a nice flat part and it works double duty like that. I do like tools that you can use for more than one thing. Right, and then I put a jump ring there, attach that jump ring that's on the toggle to it, close this up, make sure it's good and closed. There we go. And now on the other side, we'll open this jump ring and attach the ring part to our toggle clasp. And so then we've got a completed necklace. There we go. Like that. That is gorgeous and fun and beautiful. Let me get this moved out of the way, and I will pull down the painting and we'll see if it is ready to start painting in our turquoise sky. All right, friends, so this is completely dry. So I'm going to take, actually, let's use my bigger brush. I'm going to take this guy. We're just going to grab a bunch of this turquoise, this cobalt turquoise. Gonna mix up a big old lake of it right here. By mixing, I mean the water, so that I can start applying it to the paper. We're just gonna start up here, and careful-ish around the clouds. It's okay if there's some white spaces, because, you know, clouds are white. Sometimes there's a little bit of a white cloudy glow around the edges of clouds that are all lit up from that. I'm trying to make sure I get that watercolor pencil, those lines as they go through. I'm just going to work my way down. About halfway down, I'm going to start adding a little bit of indigo into this little lake of turquoise that I've got going on here, so that we get a duskier bit down near the bottoms of this painting. Let's see how that looks. More like clouds now. Okay, so about here is where I'm gonna start that transition to indigo. So I'll just grab more water, get more of this turquoise out here, and grab some indigo and tap it in there like that. This way. While this is still wet, it should bleed up into there. Get us a duskier look. The sky will be getting darker. Remember, the sunset is behind us as we are the viewer. And it is running a little bit into the yellow on the edges, and I'm okay with that. We're vibe painting. We are not trying to have this be accurate to reality. These are our dreamy clouds that I'm just trying to smooth this transition a little bit better. Do a little maybe glazing. Yeah. So there's going to be a few hardline effects. That's okay. All right, let's get more turquoise out here. Got a whole lake of that in here. And we're going to add a little more indigo to make it even darker. But I'm not going to make it any darker than this, because if I do, then the mountains down there won't be super clear. But again, the mountains weren't the main focus for this anyway. Were they? We just want the clouds. And here's where I gotta be a little more careful, just because the spaces in between the clouds are a little bit smaller, because the clouds are smaller. This is a definite vibes painting. That's what art is. For vibes. I need to mix up a little bit more of this. Okay, and I'm reached. Let's move this a little bit out of the way so you can see where I'm at now. I've reached where the mountains are, so there is a difference in color between the mountains and the sky, because that cobalt turquoise gives it more of that blue leaning. Yes, I love that. All right. So as soon as I'm done laying in this color for my sky, starts all turquoise at the top, ends with indigo down next to the mountains. Let's turn it on the side so you can get a view of all of those. So I'm going to go ahead and set this aside, let it dry some more too. It is going to change some of the tones. It's still very wet here, but it's a bit drier up at the top, so we've still got that turquoise popping. I'm going to go grab my jewelry making stuff, and let's make some quick earrings while this finishes drying. All right, friends, so let's make some earrings. I love these beautiful boho flowers that came in the box. And again, the table cut butterflies. I love them so much. I have 2 of them. I still have my orange butterfly. I probably could have used it on the necklace, but I feel like we're going to do this besides, you know, butterfly in the sky and all of that. So we're going to make these to go with our design here. I'm not going to include the orange beads and the purple beads and all of that because, you know, this is enough for that one. I do have a couple of ball head pins that I'm going to be using to make these flowers into dangles. And then we've got some 22 gauge wire. I'm going to do some wire wrap loops to make some links for that. And then I've got some ear wires for our earrings. My tools are going to be some round nose pliers, chain nose pliers, and flush cutters for this. So let's start with the flowers, and we're just going to go ahead and make both of these since it is a fairly easy earring to make, and it gives us more time for that paint to dry. So I'm going to put that ball head pin in, bend this back, wrap that wire all the way around. I'm going to use the pliers to wrap it around with this wire all the way around. And then snip. My excess wire off without also snipping my loop. And then do the same thing with the next one. And that's just going to turn into, like I said, a little dangle or drop that we can attach the rest of our earring to. Come on, mate. There you go. Honestly, I'm just kind of loving how much these flowers go with my fingernails. Let's be real. It's kind of perfect. All right, so now that we've got these guys all squared up, I'll grab the wire, and I'm going to work off the spool. It's my favorite way of doing this type of thing. I'm just going to do a couple of wrapped loops. I'm going to stack the beads that I am using for this link on here. And let's do both of these together at the same time. So I'll stack the other one on here, and let's do a wrapped loop here at the top, a couple of inches down from the top, and about 1/3 of the way down the barrel of my round nose pliers. I'm just going to grasp the wire and bend it back away from me, and then push it up and over that top loop. I'm going to open the jaw of my pliers, swing that bottom one up to the top, and keep going all the way around. And that makes a little loop there that I can push with my fingers or a second set of pliers around the neck of this. Let's go 3 times. That works. Once I've got those on there, I'm going to push my beads that are on my link right up to my loop, measure about 2.5 fingers down, cut the wire, not your fingers, and now I'm going to make another little loop. So I'm going to grab my round nose pliers, and about the same part of that barrel, I'm going to rest the back jaw against my bead. I'm not pressing down, I'm not pushing hard. And then I've got my pliers open here, and I'm just going to tip it up so that it's up next to the wire, so it's touching the wire, and then close my pliers. And when I do that, it's going to spin that right over. And I can bring this up and around. Just keep going around until my butterfly's getting in the way. So let's just keep going around. There we go. And you know what I did? I forgot to connect this before I did that. So let's do that again. That was fun. Let's do it again. All right. I don't think I need to talk you through this one again since we already did the other one, but watching the repetition never hurts to reinforce how it's done. These yellow beads make me think of lemonade every time I see it. Or no, not lemonade, orange juice. They are orange juice colored, which is not an orange color, it is a yellow color. It's like a goldenrod color. Okay, let's make our loop, but before we wrap it this time, I'm gonna stop right there, and attach my flower. This is what I should have done on that last one, but I didn't, and it's actually a mistake that I used to make quite often. It's been a little while since I did that, but it is a mistake that is totally normal to make. So if you've done something like that, you might get some vindication knowing that even people who have been doing this for a while, they still do silly things like that. That is, let's do this like that. Okay. It's just twisting my loops a little bit. Let's get this guy on here. I'm going to make that second one. Like I said, we were going to do both of them. And then check out our painting, because I don't think there's anything else that I need to do on that painting. I'm pretty happy with it. There we go. I am not a realistic painter. I don't do a lot of this thing looks exactly like what I'm painting. I do like a lot of like impression-y kind of painting styles. I love like illustrative styles, like ink and wash, that sort of thing. I'm not going to be using ink on that though. I probably could. Maybe I should sketch around some of those clouds. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to leave it the way it is, I think, because that's the vibes I'm getting and feeling, is that loose watercolor vibe. That's what I want from it, and I think I got it. It's a very loose painting. It's not hyper realistic. All right, Becky, don't mess this one up. Yay! I do like to leave my mistakes in my videos so that y'all can see that it's a normal part of jewelry making to not be perfect. Especially since a lot of times you can learn how to fix it. Like with that one, the way to fix it was to snip off the loops and start over again. Sometimes there are ways to fix it without having to do that, but not for this particular mistake that I made. There we go. So now I've got my beautiful butterflies in the sky. And my cloudy sunset colors. I love this. Let's take a look at that painting and see if it's dry. It's mostly dry. Scooch back just a little bit so you can see all of that. Let's take off our paint, because you know what? It's always so satisfying to take off the paint and get ourselves a really good look at the art when it's done. Okay. Let's go from this end. There we go. This can be a little bit satisfying, almost like ASMR, peeling off the paint. What do you guys think? Let me know what you think about my little explosion of clouds in the sky over my sunset, my desert, and my explosion of color on my beading mat for my painting and jewelry. If you want to sign up for Sam's Bead Shop or Sam's Bead Box, I have a coupon code you can use that will get you $5 off your first month subscription. And again, you've got until the 9th to go ahead and subscribe in order to get the February box. So if you want the February box, the 9th of February is when you want to sign up for that. After that, you'll be getting the March box. Thanks for curating such a beautiful box, Brittany, and thanks Sam's Bead Shop for making this possible. Until next time, my friends, happy beading.